welcome to our channel. My name is Hafsa Salim. In this video, I'm going to be sharing a very funny experience we've recently had with our backyard free-range chickens. We found over 5 dozen eggs in 2 different piles of leaves outside of their coop. They had been laying outside of their coop for over 2 weeks. We share this experience on social media because we personally did find it to be pretty funny, and we received hundreds of comments from people. Some people saying, yes, I know exactly what you're going through. Our chickens have done the same exact thing, sharing their stash of eggs that they came across, as well as comments and questions from people who were a bit confused and brought up several questions. I've narrowed them down into 6 main questions that I'm going to be going over in this video. Things like, why would chickens lay their eggs outside of their coop? How do you know if the eggs are still fresh enough to eat? Down to basic biology and understanding how an egg becomes a chick, which I will also cover in this video. If you are a new homesteader and you're interested in learning more about backyard farming, click on the subscribe link below to see all of our future videos on how to grow your own food, as well as how to get started with backyard chickens. First, let me explain exactly what happened. About 3 weeks ago, we had a very sudden temperature change. It went from around 60 degrees Fahrenheit every day to less than 30 degrees Fahrenheit for a few days in a row. We noticed that the number of eggs inside of their coop dropped to almost nothing for a few days, and then slowly it started to come back up as the weather started to warm up again. We really didn't think too much of it because it is normal for chickens to lay less eggs. If there's a sudden temperature change, then of course that's going to stress them out. And also going into winter months, depending on where you live naturally, there's going to be less daylight. So we went from having over 14 hours of daylight in the summertime to now in the fall having around 11 to 12 hours of daylight for them. That also affects the number of eggs that they are laying. We were out putting the chickens away, which is a normal thing to do. You want to lock it up at night. And we couldn't find one of our hens. So we started looking everywhere for her. We didn't know how far she had gone off. But finally, my husband found her. She was actually right underneath the front deck in sort of a crawl space, in a very dry crawl space pile of leaves. I went up to her. She looked like she was frozen in place, super silent, looked like she did not want to move, but it also looked like she was sitting on something and protecting something because she was very poofed up. So I went up to her to pick her up, to put her back into the coop, and what do I find? I find over 4 dozen eggs in that pile of leaves. So my husband and I knew immediately that some or all of our chickens had been laying in that area over the last 2 weeks. The next morning, we decided to do a little test with our chickens. We put up a camera. We did see that all of our chickens were running into that crawl space. And that one hen that was missing the night before, again, was sitting on the eggs because we did put a few of the eggs back simply to test it out. We put those eggs away, we picked her up, we moved her away from that space, and then that night when we went to put the chickens away and lock it up for the night, that same hen was missing. So my husband and I looked out again. Now it's getting dark, we're walking around with flashlights, and this time he finds her underneath the back deck, again in a crawl space, pile of leaves. I go to get her. She's in the same position, very silent, not moving, and poofed up. It's called being broody. I go to pick her up, and there are 14 eggs underneath her this time. We put her away for the night, and then when we shared this on social media, as I mentioned, it totally erupted in the amount of comments that we received. The first question that we received was, why were your chickens laying outside of their coop? This is something that people who have free-range chickens do experience once in a while because naturally you can't keep an eye on your chickens, and depending on how far your chickens are going, you really have no clue if they're laying their eggs elsewhere. The number one sign though is if you do see less eggs in their coop and they're free range, it is likely that they're probably laying elsewhere. Some of the reasons why chickens start laying outside of their coop are, number one, temperature changes, which, as I mentioned, we went through a drastic temperature change for a few days. It stressed them out, and they probably simply didn't want to run back up to their coop. The coop is about 100 feet away from us. It's a good distance. It's also on top of a hill. That's probably why they didn't want to run back up there. Another reason why though sometimes chickens lay outside of their coop is maybe it is simply not private enough for them. They do like it to be private, quiet, dark, and warm. If any of those things are missing in the equation, sometimes they will lay outside of their coop. It is nothing though to be extremely worried about. It's called normal. It happens with most people because, as I mentioned, I received many comments and many pictures from other people who also have free-range chickens sharing with us their pictures of their chicks, either with a stash of eggs or they actually came back with a whole bunch of chicks that they hatched on their own. The second question we received was, how do you test if the eggs are still edible? Are they still okay to eat? We had, as I said, over 5 dozen eggs found, and we guessed that they had been there for the last 2 weeks. We don't know if they had been there any longer than that. The way to test it is called the water test. You simply take the eggs, put them in a bowl of water. If the eggs sink, then they are still fresh enough to eat. If they float, they might not be that much older, but they might not be okay to eat. The only way to really know is obviously when you crack the egg open, you will know immediately if that egg is good or not. So we actually did test all 5 dozen plus eggs. They all passed the water bowl test. We decided though not to eat the eggs ourselves. We decided to actually feed them back to the chickens, boil them up, cut them up into small pieces, and let them cool. Give it to your chickens. It might sound kind of funny if you've never owned chickens, but you actually can feed them the eggs. Do not ever give them raw eggs though, because then they'll start pecking their eggs in their coop, and it's a very bad habit to break once they start doing that. If you ever need to do this water test for yourself because your chickens also have been laying outside of their coop, you do have to refrigerate them immediately after doing the water test. When you have backyard chickens, you can leave the eggs out for up to 2 to 3 weeks without being washed. You do not have to put them in a fridge. Once you do wash them, you do have to put them inside of a fridge, otherwise they will go bad within 24 hours. The third question that we received is a 2-part question. What is a broody hen and why does a hen become broody? So a broody hen is basically one that wants those eggs to hatch. She wants to become a mommy. It is simply her maternal instincts saying, I want these eggs to hatch. I'm going to sit on them for 21 days and keep them warm. In this situation though, we don't have a rooster, so that would have been impossible for those eggs to hatch. And if you do have a broody hen sitting on eggs that are not fertilized, you want to break that habit. The best thing is really to stop it from happening in the first place. If you're not sure what characteristics are of a broody hen, it is one that is sitting on a pile of eggs, whether they are hers or ones of the other hens. They don't necessarily have to be her own. She will sit there the entire day, and in some cases, she might even be mean to you if you try to move her. She might try to peck at you. Sometimes that also happens. So why a hen would become broody is also not only related to the hormones or the instincts, it's if they see a pile of eggs. The fourth question that we received was, how do you fix a broody hen? You might be asking yourself, well, why do you want to fix it? If you currently do not have a rooster and any of your hens become broody, that is not a good situation because those eggs are never going to turn into chicks. Another thing with broody hens is they also stop laying their own eggs for an extended period of time. So how do you fix the situation if you ever end up in it? Picking up their eggs every day after they lay, usually around lunchtime for most people, is the best time. You can also close the coop door after they're all done laying. Depending on how large your flock is though, that's kind of hard to know. When all of your chickens are done laying, it's not as if you actually sit out there and keep an eye on them the entire time. Another thing you can do is, once your chickens are done laying, if one of them is still broody, she's still sitting on a pile of eggs, you can actually pick her up and put her in the other flock. When you have food out, put some treats out for your chickens, and that way it will draw her to the food away from the eggs. The fifth question that we received was also a 2-part question. How do you stop your chickens from laying outside of their coop, and why would you want to stop them from laying outside of their coop? So how you fix it is you simply keep them in a fenced-in area around their coop, and you let them out of their coop a little bit later than normal. So this happened for us about a week ago. The first couple days, we kept them in their coop a couple extra hours in the morning so that they were forced to lay in their coop, and it puts them back into that habit. We also put up a large fence around their coop. Why you don't want your chickens to lay outside of their coop, especially if they are free range, is because it does put them in danger. Most areas have skunks, raccoons, possums, even fox or coyote. These are all big predators to chickens. So if we had not found that missing hen 2 nights in a row, something could have probably eaten her or killed her. And even if we did find her and did leave her where she was, again, we're putting her in danger and of course drawing those animals right up to the house, which you don't want to happen. So if you do have a chicken laying outside of their coop and you know where she is laying, put her back in the coop, put her in a fenced area, get them back in the habit of laying their eggs inside of the coop, and that way they're not drawing any predators near them. The 6th question that we received, you might laugh at. I laughed at when I saw it, and I kind of also scratched my head because I realized, wow, people really don't know basic biology. Some people were saying, let the chicken stay sitting on the eggs and let them become chicks because obviously she wants to be a mommy. As I mentioned a couple times already in this video, we don't currently have a rooster, so there's no way that those eggs are fertilized. A chicken, or a hen in this situation, needs to mate with a rooster, and the next day when she lays her egg for the day, that egg is usually fertilized. If she sits on that egg for 21 days, it will hatch into a chick. They don't always hatch into chicks. Sometimes they simply don't make it for whatever reason, but most of the time they do. Chickens also lay an egg every day or almost every day depending on the breed. Some chickens lay 250 eggs a year. Some are 270, some are 300, some are even more than that. So hens lay eggs all the time without the involvement of having a rooster. You only have a rooster usually if you want to breed and have chicks. So I had to address this in this video because a lot of people actually were kind of clueless on this topic. So I hope that makes a lot more sense. If a chicken is simply sitting on a bunch of eggs that are not fertilized, they will never hatch into chicks. If you had a good laugh while hearing me share this story, click on the like button below. If you found some value out of this or simply wanted to share a funny comment, mention it in the comment section below. And if you are interested in learning a lot more about backyard farming, click on the subscribe link below to see all of our future videos. This video is part of a series that we're doing all about backyard chickens, which you'll see at the end of this message. If you are interested in getting started with chickens for yourself, or maybe you're already a new chicken owner, download my chicken starter guide. It's several pages of things to know as a new chicken owner, as well as the supplies that you'll need to get started. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.